Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of the CoCo Show. It's our favorite little buddy from our childhood, the beloved 8-Bit CoCo. I can touch it. I love that machine. It's mine anyway. I'm your good buddy, your good pal, and very well-known CoCo aficionado, Amigo Aaron.
He had to remember his own name.
I know my name, and so do they. But they may not know your name, being such a jerk at all. It's the Brent.
Hey, how's it going?
Aren't you going to make a little noise?
Hey, how's it going?
There we go. It's good to be back.
Aaron on sound test was like, hey, make that noise that you make. He was like, I was like, what? He's like, you know the noise. He's like, brr, 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 brr. I was like, what in the world is he talking about?
You do these little noises. It's like a malfunctioning R2-D2. That's what it reminds me of. And sometimes the mics don't pick them up, so I had to get you to ring, because I never know when you're going to break it out for no good reason. Sort of like just then. Nevertheless, it's a CoCo Show. We talk about the TSA Co-Computer. We got a real weird one today, the Brent.
Well, yeah, you're here.
Because this time out, the Game Selection Committee have chosen the game until this week I'd never heard of and never played. And I'm guessing you hadn't either.
No, of course not.
It's Caves of the Unwashed Heathen.
I think the game committee's just trying to tell us something.
Yeah. Well, we're unwashed heathens. We don't live in caves yet. Give us time, though. We're driving this thing. It's hot as a cave in here.
This is a cave-like structure.
So, one of the big thing about this game to me was this is a game that's written in BASIC.
Yeah.
You know, now
super impressive.
Of course, we both, in case you're late to the party, we both grew up same household. We're brothers with CoCo Computer, CoCo 2, CoCo 3. Do you recall playing mini games in the old BASIC back when you were
I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference.
Did you remember typing in any games?
Oh, yeah. I typed in tons of games. But, like, if we would have gotten a game, because we had a lot of games through mysterious means. But, yeah, if you would have put a game in front of me and been like, here, Brent, this is BASIC, I'd have been like, what? I don't care.
Well, I will say, normally, BASIC games in my childhood were like garlic to a vampire. Not interested, because they were always low end. But as I got a little older and more advanced and did some of my own type-ins out of magazines and stuff, it turns out that you can put together a pretty decent BASIC game in CoCo BASIC.
Yeah.
You know, the funny thing about the CoCo, it's sort of and I can't speak for the Spectrums or the Amstrads or even the Atari computers, but the CoCo had some great, robust, and kid-friendly manuals that came with it that sort of lets you dip your toe in the pool of BASIC and get an idea, and you could follow along with the little talking computer that was in those things, and it would help you put in basic programs. And so just by looking through those books, I had a remedial understanding of what BASIC was, because the concept of programming to a kid, you don't know.
Well,
but I knew if the computer came on and I typed in some stuff in the exact order they said to do it, things could happen. And eventually, if you type in a bunch of stuff, you realize that things are happening because of things you're typing in. And that's sort of the way that a young Aaron learned how to do any sort of programming.
And that's also where it stopped.
Well, yeah, that's true. But did you ever follow along in the old manual of the BASIC stuff?
See, I definitely have keyed in a few games.
Yeah.
Because I've told this story before on this show. Man, already rehashing stories. Of where I would go into other people's crack screens and erase their name and put my own. And I would have never, ever known how to do that without keying in my own stuff.
Yeah.
So, in that regards, I guess some of it stuck. So, yeah.
You know, I always wondered. It's funny, Josh, our chat, just mentioned he used to key in a lot of stuff with Atari. I wonder I wonder if there's a ratio between kids learning to program on machines that had a passable keyboard. Because I'm thinking to myself, if I'm sitting at the house and someone fires up the Specky, for example, and that god-awful dead flesh keyboard, and I'm going to try, now it did have all the cool shortcuts, but just think to yourself, long-term typing on that, it seems god-awful.
Well, I have a counter to that.
Yeah.
If that was the only keyboard you ever knew, you wouldn't have known it was bad.
Well, that's a valid point. But I just can't imagine going after it. And at the same time, I think of of course, we know a little bit about the Atari computer line. I've got an Atari 400 sitting in my room with the membrane keyboard, sort of like what we had on the Odyssey 2. it's even worse than the Dead Flesh keyboard. It's completely horrible.
Well, because we had an Odyssey too. I guess we had that at the same time, or was that just before the
well,
CoCo?
We never owned an Atari Party. I just happened to own one.
No, an Odyssey.
Oh, it was before the CoCo, yeah.
So I remember I never did any programming on the Odyssey because I would have been like 4.
You also couldn't. We'd have to have a bunch of extra stuff to do that. We didn't have.
But I remember just because you get a high score and you would type in your name, and I remember because I don't know where I would have had exposures to other keyboards, but I knew that the membrane thing was no good.
Yeah.
Even as a wee little lad, and I'm guessing because we also had access to like a televisions where their little membrane keyboard where you put the overlays.
Talking about on the Intellivision controller.
Yeah. So I was thinking, man, that compared to like even the joystick of the Odyssey, where the button feels so much better, even though the button on the Odyssey was not great.
No, it was not good.
Talk about a button with some play on it.
Yeah, and it's funny though because we can't feel like, of course, we had the CoCo 2 for the majority of our CoCo days. For the end, we get to CoCo 3. CoCo doesn't do lowercase, and so I remember lamenting our neighbors Ataris because when they typed in their basic programs, they could use lowercase, and we couldn't. It was annoying. The CoCo 3 fixed that, but the CoCo 2 couldn't do lowercase when you did your own basic programming.
Well, I get what you're saying. Surely back then, I probably thought that was a positive because anytime you typed anything, you knew how to line everything up without having... Although, I guess the Atari 400 didn't have true font, right? It took up the same.
Oh, God,
if you drew an I, it took up as much room as like a capital B.
Well, they were all they all fit the same text box level.
Right.
I guess on the CoCo, it just seems like you're always shouting. So maybe that's where I get it.
See, that never would have occurred to me as a child. Never would have occurred to me as a child.
So I guess to summarize this thought, we all had our cross the bear when it came to programming on these machines. But I'll be honest with you, occasionally I'm impressed with a basic program. You know, since Josh is in here, he goes and judges this contest where these guys try to write basic programs like one line or certain.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Very simple, and it's incredible what they can come up with. They're remarkable what the people come up with. So it's an art form, frankly, and it's something that is still around. People are still doing it, and it basically really is the universal programming language that everyone's at least had a cup of coffee with if you've been over the computer. And plus, in the old days, you sort of at least had to know some commands just to load stuff off cassette or off disk.
Yes.
So you had to get in there and give it a shot. With all that said, I think I've came across very few programs that were as ambitious as the game we're looking at today. The game with the crazy name. Let's get into it, Brent. All right, so this week's game is, in fact, Caves of the Unwashed Heathen. You know, I may have some insight on this name, by the way, at least some speculation into it. So this is a game that was authored by a fellow named Paul Shoemaker. We've actually looked at one of his games on the show. He also did Ghost Rush, if you remember that from back in the day. The thing where the Pac-Man goes around the circle.
Might have not
Don't
been
remember
with
that
me.
one? It may have been with Boat. This was released in this release date we'll get into. So
it released again and again and again and again.
Yeah, sort of. So this game is an interesting cat, and in that, from what I read, looking through, I found a link to an article or a blog that Shoemaker made.
Yeah, I've read that as well.
This is from his blog. Just before we get too deep in the woods on this. He writes, originally I wrote this game on an Apple IIe while in high school for my final project. Then it used an 80-column screen with alphanumeric characters for graphics. The CoCo 2 version I wrote in 1996 when I discovered the emulator, and I've since then repurchased all CoCo hardware I had back in the 80s. The game runs on 32-column screen and uses the low-res graphics characters to generate 3D maze and the monsters. The program itself The program itself is in BASIC, while the 3D view is in pure assembly language for speed's sake, of course. There's a version that's also enhanced for the CoCo 3, which is nothing, but that's the one we both played. And it uses a RAM disk. We'll get into the turbulence that causes. But you can also play this on the CoCo 1 and 2. And there's also another version, which we'll also get to. Now, one thing I want to mention before we go too much further into this is that, again, this game, I don't think was ever released commercially. I think this was just released for download. So,
yeah.
Curtis has this listed as published by Paul. I don't guess there was any actual distribution or selling of this game.
From what I read, I didn't see anything like that either. Yeah.
And again, this will run on a CoCo 1 or 2 with 32K of RAM, or a CoCo 3 with 128K of RAM. And on the CoCo 3 version, the game creates a RAM disk to quicken the loading and the drawing of stuff. One of the problems with that, though, is that if you play this on a CoCo 3 emulator, the RAM disk does you no favors. So in actuality, from what I've heard, it's better to not use this version. Now, if you're going to play this proper, I would not play any of these versions. Allow me to tell you about another version that's out there. If you go to the TRS-80 archive, you're going to see a version of this done by Mr. Reaper. He's friendly. Good old Mr. Reaper, a.k.a. Aaron Oliver. And he did a bug fix on this to make this run better, including fixing the final level where the fifth level wasn't completed. He did some other things to keep it from screwing up, get your save games working, to get rid of some things that weren't actually in the game. So I don't think you played his version.
No.
But if you're going to get one version of these on the CoCo, then I would get the one that is the bug fix one on the TRS-80 archive. So,
and I can throw in one more thing of that.
Go ahead.
On the version I played one that I downloaded from Abandonware.
Yeah.
I
can't believe it.
Anytime you would cast the sleep spell, crash the game.
Really?
Every time. Yeah, I tried it 3 or 4 times, and every time I tried to cast the sleep spell on a bad guy, it crashed the game.
That is odd, isn't it? So, what is this game? So, this game is a Dungeons & Dragons style game. I would say sort of like a rogue-like gimmick here.
No.
You don't think so?
No, the levels never change. The enemy placement changes, but the levels don't.
You're right. So, the levels never change. What you do in this game is you roll up a character, and when I mean roll up, it's a classic D&D cheat roll up where you actually go through and wait till you get what you want. And sometimes you can get real lucky when you do the dice rolling. How many times did you cheat at the dice rolling, Brett?
The problem with the dice rolling is instead of being 3 to 18, it's 1 to 18.
Yeah.
Which means it's just pulling random numbers instead of actually simulating rolling 3 dice. Not a huge deal, but some of your stats, if you've got like a 1 or 2 in it, don't even play. You just re-roll because you can't do anything.
So if you're watching this at home, this is me. I recorded this footage. Now, one thing, I mentioned this for a reason. This is on a CoCo 3. I played this on a CoCo 3 with the enhanced processor on it. The CoCo 3, the color, you can tell a color difference in the text there from the background. That is a trait of the CoCo 3 version.
Yeah, because when I played it, I didn't have that.
Yeah. And so you go through here, and you've got your normal 6 stats, just like you would normally have in D&D. And once you have found the ones you like, you enter your name, and then you go to work. And so this game is one of those wacky tales where you're going into a dungeon via elevator.
Yeah.
And it's not one, it's like a dumbwaiter or like something in a mine. It just looks like an elevator.
It looks like a modern day elevator.
And you start at the elevator, and if you go up in the elevator, you go to what's on the above ground level, which
Return
is
to town,
which is like a bar, and you can go up there to quip. You can do stuff like that. Once you go down in the elevator, you're in the cave of the Unwashed Heathen. The caves are vast. There are 5 levels of caves on this thing. Again, this is all done in BASIC. Now, we should. I don't want to get too far into this, but we talk about the speed of this game.
Well, I want to stop you and go even one step back.
Go ahead. Go back.
Because there's two things you didn't mention with startup that is incredibly important.
All right, go ahead.
Not only are all your stats randomized, you also get a random amount of health and a random amount of starting gold.
See, I wasn't sure about that.
Yes.
Because the reason I say that is I didn't know if the hit points were based on any of your rolled stats, and I didn't know if the money was based on like your charisma.
It's not.
How do you know?
Because trust me, I experimented.
Okay.
Now it might have a range depending on your score, but I had 4 hit points with a Constitution of 18, and I got 19 gold with a charisma of 18. Oh. So I'm going to guess that it, like I said, it might have a table that it pulls from, but I don't think so. I think it's just random.
Yeah. It's an old school game. It'll send you in a dungeon with not very many hit points.
So after you get all your stats, the first thing you do is go to the shop where you can buy weapons and armor. If you got a good gold pull, and by good gold pull, I mean starting with like anything 20 money or more is a good gold pull.
I never ever had over 20 ever.
That allows you to buy a weapon and a shield. Sometimes I had a starting gold total of 6.
Yeah,
which allowed me to buy, the weapons you can choose from start at 2 gold, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So you can always buy a weapon. However, the armor is 20.
It's pricey.
10, 20, 40, 50, 60, I think.
And I think 10 is just the shield.
Shield
is 10, and that's the lowest one.
Right.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about this is you can never start all the way super powered up. It's not going to happen. You go into the dungeon, you can go get gold, come back, go up the elevator, and buy new stuff.
Yeah.
That's both a blessing and a curse. The reason why it's awesome is you could do it, become more powerful fairly quickly. The bad side of it is to really get a good run going, you have to do it, which I thought kind of sucked.
Yeah. And that means a lot of backtracking.
You don't choose what kind of character you play. You just play as the guy. So you're not playing a cleric or a warrior, blah, blah, blah. You're sort of a mage. You're sort of a warrior mage. That's basically what you are. Except you're level 1, that'd be impossible.
Well, I mean, what I mean is you do magic and you also do sword stuff.
You automatically start with 1 level 1 spell, which you can use at any time. And if you go back to the inn and sleep, you get your magic back. The way sleeping works is actually really awesome. You can choose how long to sleep for. And the longer you rest, it costs more gold because you have to pay per night you're there. But you can get all your hit points back and your magic back. So that part of it, super balanced. I really liked it. Now you can talk about the gameplay stuff.
Yeah, so this game is not fast.
No.
No matter what you play. Now, I think Pajaka mentioned that he cranked up the speed to ultra fast. And it was a lot. And we're doing modern times. If you want to emulate this, crank up the speed to like unbelievable, unobtainable levels. Do it. Not the worst idea. And the added bonuses, since the bug fix version I played lets you change the speed of the displays, you can actually toggle with how quick stuff goes away. So you can actually make presumably, because I didn't do this, you can make a faster CPU work in your favor.
Yeah.
It's not going to be crazy. Also, it's turn-based, so it's not like any real-time stuff's going to screw you if you play with something quicker. When this thing kicks up, it gives you a screen with your various keyboard commands. It's not that difficult. You can use the ASWD to do stuff, but I use the arrow keys.
Arrow keys, yeah.
And then if you want to cast, you just hit C. It's out of combat. And if you want your map to come up, you hit M. Now, the screen on this is cut in half. One side shows you a first-person view of where you're at in the dungeon. The boat hates this feature portion of the game because boat hates these games. The other side of the screen is your information area. It'll show your character stats. It'll show your spells. It'll show the map, whatever. And at the bottom, there's a scroll at the bottom. It's not a scroll. messages pop into this area.
Message area.
It'll say like, you hit, you missed, your spell didn't work, whatever. Get used to seeing that. And so when you hit the map button, for example, it reminded me of loading up a hole in world-class leaderboard golf. It slowly generates the map. While it's doing that, you can't move. Now, once the map is on the screen, you can move around with the map up till you run into something. But the map doesn't update in real time, so you have to just look at where you're at, try to figure it out. Do you know where you're going in the dungeon? You do if you know where you're going, but if you don't, you don't. You just kind of lumber around like I did. But one thing I'll determine was there's a lot of dead ends in these dungeons, and that's often where you'll find the treasure.
Yeah.
Treasure chests are in dead ends all over the place. And and amongst the things you run into in the dungeon are treasure chests. You run into treasure chests, doors. You will run into monsters. And when you run into a monster, combat begins. It gives you the choice. You want to fight the monster, you want to flee. You don't have to
cast a spell.
Or cast a spell. Well, so I guess it's not necessarily fighting, depending on what you do. If you flee, you'll probably get away. I don't know if I ever got caught fleeing.
Oh, I did.
I don't think I can remember ever getting caught.
It's dependent on the monster.
And then if you cast, it will open up your spell book. If you fight, you will swing whatever weapon you're carrying at the monster. It'll tell you if you hit or not. And then the monster takes its turn. This is the way the game goes. It's not a complicated game. I was impressed. Again, if you're watching the video, I was able to find when you download the version of this game that has the bug fixes, it also comes with a jacked up super character. So I got to try out the upper level spells. Fireballs and lightning bolts and all that sort of stuff. They're cool. They work. There's a slight animation for them.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
So when again, this updates in real time like you're in first person. It's all in characters, but you get the point. But eventually you're going to come across a creature. I ran across trolls, troglodytes, pixies. I ran across something warriors. I can't remember what they're called. Vampires, dragons. When you see these creatures, a full-size picture of them draws in the picture side of your map, and you can decide what to do. It depends on what you're fighting. You don't know how tough it is. You sort of have to guess. But if you're fighting a dragon, probably not that easy. Depends on where you're at in the dungeon.
Yeah.
Eventually, as you go through the dungeon, you're going to come to areas where you'll find another elevator that goes down. When you do that, you'll go down to the next level of the dungeon. I believe there's a total of 5 levels down, I believe. As Brent mentioned, the maps don't change. So once you understand the maps, I guess you might be able to know where you're at without looking at the map.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got the first level down pretty good.
So when this thing honed into view, what did you think? First thoughts on this one?
This comes up with a very nice basic level graphics splash screen, which I appreciated. And then it gets you, after it loads and puts anything into memory, it's going to put into memory, it gets you going. You choose your character, you roll your character, I should say, and it gets you in the game. Is it slow? Yes.
Yeah.
By
today's standards.
You want it to go faster because you want to experience the game and parts of the game that you haven't got to yet. But here's the thing. If you're excited and you want it to go faster so you can see new stuff, that probably means the game's doing something right.
Yeah.
I rolled, a dozen characters at least. I got killed every time. I made it to level 2 in the dungeon twice, but I never gained a level because the way you gain levels in this is like old school D&D. It's based off the treasure you pick up exponentially more than the enemies you kill.
That's what it should be.
Old school. When you open a chest, if the chest has 100 gold in it, you gain 100 experience. And you need 1,000 to get from level 1 to level 2. Enemies are like 20 XP. Unfortunately, treasure chests sometimes are like 5 gold or 10 gold. The most gold I ever got out of a chest was 250 gold.
Oh,
which was crazy good.
I got 162 one time. I was on a little dance.
You could also get
nothing.
Equipment out of the chest. There are 18 different monsters you can run into. In the updated version. Yeah, that's what the site said. They all have a picture. They all have hidden stats. Some things are obviously easier to hit than others. I mean, just from playing the game, you can figure that much stuff out. I really enjoyed this. But that's why I kept playing it. Even after, like I said, I had it when I cast the sleep spell, it crashed. So I wanted to test it. I went back found the same creature, cast the sleep spell again, it crashed. Loaded it back up, tried to cast a sleep spell on a different creature, it still crashed. So for me to run 3 characters that I knew had the high possibility of going into failure just to test the game, and after all that, I still loaded it up and played it more, meant I was having a good time.
Yeah.
Is the game perfect? No. It would be awesome if it was a little bit faster. It would be awesome if you saw how your stats were affecting the rolling that was going on in the background. It would be awesome if you saw what the stats were actually doing. Because, I have no idea what wisdom actually does.
I assume it increases the potency of your spells. Or, because one thing, it may be this. This is game. I'm the perfect. I don't want to toot my own horn. You couldn't get a better guy to review this.
Well, I know what wisdom does in D&D.
Right, but here's the thing. This game has spell slotting in it. Okay, yes. So you may have fourth level spells, and you may have 4 of them or 5 of them. You may have 4 first level spells, but depending on your level, it tells you how many times that you could cast those per day. So I don't know if it plays into that, but it possibly, because that's the way the old D&D was.
Is that based off of wisdom or intelligence?
That's wisdom. I think that was wisdom.
Just like hitting something, you understand that the strength is how much it helps on how much damage you do, but is actually hitting something based off your strength or your dex. There are questions that you don't necessarily. Well, that's how normal D&D works, but through my test, it didn't come out that way. So you don't need to know that information, and maybe he put it in the background so you wouldn't worry about it. Me just being who I am, wanted to know those things. So I actually played a lot just trying to figure that out, which wasn't fun. It was me trying to achieve a goal. But when I just said, listen, let's not worry about any of that. Let's just sit down and play the game. I had a lot of fun with this, even when I died from a treasure chest exploding.
I died like that one.
Even when I went up to the 2nd floor just to peek my head in, because I had a pretty good character going, and I took like 4 steps and got attacked by a red dragon. I went to run, and he was like, no. Wham! I was dead. Yeah. It was, but I'm okay with that. I had a lot of fun with this. I would love to have the original author or the people who made the tweaks tweak it just a little bit more. I think would be fun. But even as it sits right now, it's a really good game that needs to be out there, and people need to know about it and go play it.
Just a little bit, and I'm going to mention one more version of this. In fact, this may ultimately be the best version of this to play, if you can believe it. So a few years ago, this game, there's a fellow named Jim Gerrie, that's Jimgerrie, ported this game over to the TRS-80 MC10, okay? He did a lot of stuff. He did a lot of fixes on this thing, but he did a nice little blog post here where he sort of tried to guess what the original creator was doing. The reference to the Unwashed Heathen, he speculates this, and this is even before my time, but in the early days of role-playing games, like, I believe that some of the media or whatnot referred to the people that played D&D as unwashed heathens.
Yeah.
So there's a possibility that that's involved. He also mentions that there's a reference, or a possible reference, to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in the game, which I did not see. But again, I didn't get all the way through it. But Jerry went and took on this as an MC10 game. And I did not try this because I thought one of these days maybe we'll play it. We've never done an MC10 episode, I don't think. Have we done an MC10? I don't think so.
Not that I recall. ARG,
but
get
he
on it.
adds a lot of stuff. Among other things, he also put a map editor in on the MC10 version that you can go through and make your own maps, which I found interesting. It's funny, after all these years, this game still has people that come upon it and are surprised or are impressed, you know. And so I will say, to echo some of what you said, I can't help but agree with you. When this came up, I mean, the name, I was like, what is this?
Yeah, it's poorly named.
You know, and I mean, if he named it that when he did the Apple IIe version, I'd salute him for keeping it. So why not? But what you've got here is a totally serviceable, sort of a old school Dungeons and Dragon crawl.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no frills. This is the kind of game you'd see. It sort of reminds me of what we were playing on the servers when we did the college computer.
Well, I think it's above that.
Oh, no, but I'm saying it's in that. This is like the natural progression of that, you know. And so you get it's a totally playable, fun little romp.
Yeah.
It's not hard. You don't have to keep track of anything in particular. You know, you can just go in here and have a good time. It allows you to fail. If you come across it, most of the time, you can get away, which is good. Like Brent said, you could go down and get a lucky strike on a gold chest and load up, go up top, and the armor stuff definitely makes a difference.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's the fact that he's sort of semi-based it on old school D&D rules. I like that.
Yeah.
You know, and so the MC10 version even stretched that forward. Something I noticed when I looked up the long lost Internet Archive blog from Paul is he mentioned Caves of the Unwashed Heathen version 2.0. He writes, if you've been keeping up, you'll see I've completely reworked in the new caves. It now supports 16-color graphics, and he used the CoCo Max 3 program to do the graphics editing. It's going to have a full point-and-click interface with hotspots. And so all this sounded great. Then he mentioned if you've ever played Caves of Chaos module, which I've heard of that was included with TRC's original basic Dungeons & Dragons, you'll have a very good idea of the game. So he's basically transposing that, or was. He also mentions he's modified his initial vision of using multiple characters. Now you will only choose one character of a certain class, similar to the PC world Diablo. Now, I say that because I'm pretty sure this never got made or never even came close to getting made.
I think it was a roadmap that went nowhere.
So, but I mean, it's the concept of that, of the possibility that would be interesting. Paul is still, I mean, because a lot of people act like Paul fell off the earth, but I know he hasn't because I know I've seen him on CoCo Nation. And I may have met him. I don't know if I did or not at CoCo Fest. I'm not 100% sure. But Paul, if you're out there and you see this show, please update us on the current status of Caves of the Unwashed Heathen version 2. We'd all be interested in hearing about that. But I know he's still doing stuff because he's got. I mean, one of the credits on here, Poker Squares, was from 2022. Yeah. So I think he took a long siesta from the CoCo before getting back in. But I think he's fully back in on this one. But overall, in summary, a simple game, a fun game. There's no sound, so there's nothing to talk about there. In fact, the sound you heard in the intro was just some sound I put in. Could have sound for the radio people. By the way, this is a map if you're watching at home. If you're not, it's got the map of level 3. It just says it's an IBM with a big Ghostbusters sign over it.
A no symbol.
A no sign. So not a fan of the IBM was Paul back in those days. We do have a review here, Brent, if you are interested in hearing it.
Sure.
I think you know who may have left this review. It's our good buddy, Pajako, who chimes in.
Oh, I thought it was going to be Amiga Cammy.
And well, you never know. I really like this one. Yes, it is simplistic, and I read that this was written in BASIC. There is something about the graphics I find very appealing, and I think because they are very reminiscent of the old teletext graphics we used to get through TV, which that's a whole other line of interest. if you ever care to look into that. And Paul continues, so while I utterly sucked at this and got killed a few times, I had fun playing. Although I think I need to re-roll my character as he can get like one spell off and then I'm done for. Nope, sorry, Paul.
That's it.
It is a little slow, but thankfully through the wonders of modern emulation, you can speed it up on your system. It makes a better experience. The graphics in this are beautiful and convey a lot of detail in a small amount of space. And I got killed by a spider, a pixie, and even something that looked like Freddy Fazbear. So there's quite a bit of variety. Audio, natural, is just some bleeps, but honestly, it suits the game just fine. My only improvement request on this would be to update the map as you move. But with the CPU turbo enabled, pressing the M key every few moves is not a showstopper. What is a dungeon crawler? Its barrier to entry is low, and so you can get into the action pretty quick. It's honestly not something I'm going to play a ton of, but certainly one I would point people towards for something a bit different. I think that's a fair assessment of that.
Absolutely.
Of that. Any final thoughts on this one before we put it to bed?
No, I think I have made my peace on the game. I think it's very good.
Yeah, and I think what Pajako said was dead on. The barrier to entry on this is quite low. So if you're, and again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you go over to TRS-80 archive and just look down the list of games, there's a button beside them that says "Play Now." If you click it, you can play now.
Wow.
And so this is a game that they support. I urge you, if you don't have a CoCo, get one. But if you can't get a CoCo, go over to the TRS-80 archives and get this thing and play it. I think you'll really enjoy it.
Absolutely.
So that was the ever-popular Cave of the Unwashed Masses. Now, moving forward, the Brent,
yes.
The selection committee has chosen a game for the next episode, CoCo Show. I've never heard of this one, but I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. The committee overwhelmingly chose a game called East World Karate.
Well, you know, East World, West World, it's all good karate.
Have you ever heard of East World Karate in your whole life?
Are you kidding me?
It's amazing how many of these things are unknown to me, but this is another one. The next CoCo Show, we haven't scheduled our second half of the year yet. We're closing out the first half. It will probably be sometime in late August, the Brent, for the next CoCo Show. Now, let's turn next to what we've got cooking next week, Brent, on ARG Presents. What are we taking on next week, the Brent?
We spun up games that racers without cars, I believe.
Yeah, it was racing games with no vehicle. I believe it was the title we were going to pick from. And I believe this is a Rushi joint. He selected this one. So next week on ARG Presents, that's what we'll be playing before we circle around again. Quick reminder, we are coming to that last few weeks before Boat Fest. Boat Fest is is less than 3 weeks away, the Brent. Boat Fest takes place the 11th, 12th, and 13th of July, and we'll be here in scenic and beautiful downtown Hurricane. I'm sure most of you have heard about it by now. We'd love to have you come down if you're somewhere in the ballpark. Tickets still available. Tickets are also available at the door. It'll be a lot of fun. Not only are they going to have a live Amigos there, where we're going to be celebrating our 10th year, and we're also going to have a live ARG Presents. And Brent's going to pull something out somewhere, but God knows what. There'll also be a live Sprite Castle hosted by Rob Flack O'Hara, which are always fun. Big Rob's van will also be there in the parking lot for people to look at. We're also going to have all sorts of exhibits, displays. We're going to have a full schmoz of goodies. So please, stop by Boat Fest 2025. It should be a good time. Any final thoughts before we take this to the house?
Nope.
Alrighty. That's it for the CoCo Show. We'll catch you next time for Eastern Karate. Until then, have a good and safe weekend, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.